school building was on fire and your kid was in that building while that building burned, you would throw a wet blanket over your head. You would crash through a window. You would go in there and you would suffer burns down to your bones to get your kid out of that school. Any parent worth the salt in their body would do so. Folks, it is on fire. It is burning. It's burning right now, and it's burning your children. It's burning their minds. It's burning away the freedom of their childhood. It's burning away their imagination. Get them out.
Hello, I'm Christine Zips, health rights advocate and founder of Zips Media and Safer Alternatives to Government Schools. In this presentation, we're bringing you a parent's perspective. You'll see real-time accounts of real parents from a Colorado school district. It's from a Board of Education meeting where they are expressing their concerns, questions, and frustrations based on what their child is going through in the system. And we hope you'll find this helpful in seeing what goes on behind the scenes, because schools are not known for being totally forthcoming with parents. So there's a lot that you're likely very much not aware of. So see what you think, check it out. You'll find more information in the show notes below. And this is for your consideration to help lead to more informed decisions for your child. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Parents are displeased with declining academic performance, but are outraged on the attack on traditional family values. I'm concerned about the continued support of No Place for Hate program in Poudre School District, which promotes critical race, identity, and economic theory. If you search the No Place for Hate collection for middle school lessons addressing gender and sexism, you find 13 lessons with titles such as Moving Beyond Gender Barriers in Our Lives and Understanding Heterosexism and How to Be an Ally. These classroom lessons are for kids as young as 11 years old, and each lesson provides emotion-generating articles, videos, and activities. If your children's beliefs and values don't match what they're being told during the 7 hours they spend in school each day, they experience cognitive dissonance, which can cause them to become unnerved and anxious, and especially vulnerable to authority figures. A former PSD student, who is now a licensed mental health therapist, stated, quote, "I'm behind you 100% when it comes to the grave dangers in schools. Specifically, I believe the connection between cognitive dissonance and increasing student anxiety is on point," end quote. So why does PSD continue to implement a program that's designed to create anxiety in students and push values not supported by parents? Thank you.
Hello, I'm here to address this district's increasing secrecy, lack of transparency, complete disregard for parental rights, and the gender ideology that runs rampant in our schools that PSD knowingly fosters, disregarding those of us who speak up about its negative effects on our children. There should not have to be so many PSD parents here today begging you for transparency, partnership, and respect. When will you take steps to repair relationships with parents, be more transparent, and actually address the overreach of this district? PSD continues to conduct gender and sexuality programming without informing or allowing parents to opt our children out. These are our children, not yours. Since my child's incident, this district has instructed PSD nurses to ask students' pronouns and not tell parents if a child is self-harming. You've defended PSD staff who recruit vulnerable children into confidential programs, provide their personal contact information to young kids, and tell them that it's okay to lie to parents. You've made generic posts with no context about how you're celebrating transgenderism in our schools. You would even discuss sending DHS to the home of a parent who disagrees with your secret programming. Your actions, your deceptions, your condoning children lying to parents are inexcusably harming children. You've not only caused life-threatening situations, you would also blatantly strip PSD parents of their right to care for their own child in a life-threatening situation. PSD board, something has to change.
To believe you when you said you wanted transparency and that you were here for all students, that was my mistake for not seeing you for the politician you are. After hearing from Erin and myself that night, you asked, how can we move forward? I did not have a perfect solution, but I told you less is more. And to my surprise, you agreed. And then the school district went viral. Here was an opportunity to prove what you said that night, but instead of owning up to the mistakes that were made and trying to mend a rift in the district, you doubled down on your political agenda. And what's worse is that you made it pretty clear that the Lee family was in the wrong and those in the LGBT community were the victims. So I'm done pleading with you to listen. I know you won't. Instead of my messages to the parents, this district does not care about your children unless they check certain boxes. So I implore you to take your kids out. There are many other options where they will get an actual education and not indoctrination. Parents, you hold all the power. Stop giving it to PSD because they will just abuse it.
Tonight, I'm going to address the parents here in this room and online. It's been made clear that this board does not care to listen to anyone that differs with their opinions. Parents, my plea with you this evening is to stop labeling our children. We need to teach them to love and respect everyone without the labels. I constantly hear you talk about inclusivity, but does that mean we only include those that have a special label? To be inclusive is to include all people. So instead of separating our children by categories, let us teach them love, respect, and acceptance. Perhaps if we stop requiring categories and labels, our children will feel more included and accepted. Never in my life has my identity been my sexual orientation or gender. I don't introduce myself by saying my name is Kelly, I'm white, married, heterosexual, female. Why do we force our children to? Why do we put such emphasis on sexual orientation or gender? If we teach our kiddos to love and accept with respect, then we cover all bases. We teach our children to include everyone, and then our teachers can go back to teaching academics instead of morals and values. That's what us parents are for. Thank you.
It seems like just about every day, all across the country, we find out about another example of the indoctrination or the garbage that is being exposed to our kids in our schools, whether it's a drag queen episode in our high schools or middle schools or sex books for 6-year-olds. You name it. We're absolutely tired. We're exhausted by this. We're trying to figure out all the ways that our teachers and our schools are violating our values and causing irreparable harm to our children. I think the simplest way to communicate tonight is this. We no longer consent. We do not consent to anyone teaching our children about critical race theory or any of its ideas, themes, principles, or concepts in any way. We do not consent to anyone using tactics to divide, separate, exclude, guilt, or shame children based on their race. We don't consent to anyone teaching our children that they're oppressors or victims, privileged or disadvantaged, racist or sexist, or that their future is limited in any way based upon their race. We do not consent to anyone teaching our children about gender, pronouns, sexual orientation, or hypersexuality, or revealing their gender or sexual orientation anymore to our children. We do not consent to anyone exposing our children to any sexual material with pornographic images, age-inappropriate content, or sex acts that may strip them of their innocence or groom them for future sexual abuse. We do not consent to anyone giving our kids gender-affirming care, counseling, medical advice, or anything else relative to transitioning from one gender to another.
I'm actually here tonight to say thank you. According to our superintendent, success is prioritized as understanding the population in PSD who wrestle with who they are, rather than if they are performing at grade level in reading, writing, and math. He said in his video that trust is built through listening, empathy, credibility, and transparency. And tonight, I'm here to say that you are not listening to us. This is not about clubs. This is not about safe spaces or reading lists. It's about transparency in the policy that you are making that are shutting parents out. Your empathy is misdirected when you are all too willing to spread destructive propaganda in the name of inclusivity, because you seem to want to wage war on parental authority. Your credibility is shot. So why am I thanking you? I'm thanking you because your total lack of transparency has lit a fire under parents. We are now more motivated than ever before to call for transparency, to help you understand what that means to PSD parents and students, and to move PSD forward toward that goal. Thank you.
Thank you. I am the mother of 2 who were enrolled in PSD until last October. I sat on the Rice SAC for 3 years. What brought me here is the story that you heard earlier. The U.S. Department of Education states nearly 1 in 10 children in the U.S. will experience sexual misconduct by a school employee. So I would say that luring children into staying out for an after-school activity, asking children whom they are sexually attracted to, and telling children that parents are unsafe and to keep quiet is predatory behavior that doesn't belong in our classrooms. In my last meeting with the SAC, in response to a 15% drop in test scores, cultural pedagogy, the praxis of race theory, was identified in the UIP. Erin's story is another example of identity Marxism entering our schools. As a follower of Christ, I teach my kids a biblical worldview, that we were born male and female according to God's design, and to love all people, because we are all made in God's image. However, true love isn't always affirmation. It's pointing people to truth to guide them, because the greatest freedom is knowing truth and walking in it. What is going on in our schools isn't about truth or having compassion and love for our kids and providing a solid foundation for life. It is about the inculcation of a far different worldview, where it is more important to promote identity politics as a means to achieve equity, not equality. And the consequence is mediocrity in outcomes, not excellence, and floundering instead of flourishing under the weight of holding identity above love.
I'm here to stress the importance of parental involvement in a child's life at school for the lifetime of the child's education. This involvement requires transparency by the school at every level. My mother was a third grade teacher for 30 years, and I grew up hearing how much she loved parents coming in and helping and how much better those children did. The research agrees. I cannot go over decades of research in 1.5 minutes, but results show that keeping secrets from parents is associated with substantial psychosocial and behavioral disadvantages in adolescence. Family involvement improves student success regardless of race, ethnicity, class, or parents' level of education. After decades of being taught the phrase stranger danger, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has campaigned hard against the phrase because they know that most children are abused or harmed by people known to the family. Teachers, administrators, and outside lecturers who blatantly tell students to keep secrets from their parents fall into that category of people that children should be taught not to trust. There should never be an adult asking a child to keep a secret. Adults in the school system should never model behavior that is so damaging. It is clear from decades of research that children have better outcomes when parents are involved. Any school administrator or teacher trying to thwart parental involvement in any way does not have the best interest of the child in mind, and they should be removed from their post or position. Thank you.
Hello. I want to ask the question, when did it become acceptable to you to tell kids that their parents are not safe? When did it become acceptable to you to tell children it's okay to lie to their parents about what club they're attending? When did it become acceptable to you to tell kids that they can't tell their parents what was discussed in these clubs? When did it become acceptable to you for schools to hide what happens at school from parents? When did it become acceptable to you for presenters at these clubs to hand out their personal contact information? When did it become acceptable to you for the presenters to become the safe person and not the parent? When did it become acceptable to you to label me and other parents haters because we're questioning what our kids are being taught at school? When did all of this become acceptable to you? Educating our children is a partnership based on transparency and trust. It's time to start repairing that relationship with parents. Thank you.
I've seen signs in many of our PSD schools that say, if you see something, say something. I'd really need about 90 minutes, not 90 seconds, to say what I've seen and heard this past year. As a 30-year PSD employee, my heart hurts. My jaw drops. I get angry, and I can hardly believe that the district I've been so very proud to support, to serve, and to promote for so long has changed so dramatically. When PSD began making national news 2 weeks ago, my husband and I were visiting Colonial Williamsburg, an inspiring place where Americans can learn about our history without CRT influence and the amazing brave people who sacrificed so much to create our republic. Each day there were speakers in full costume telling us the stories of life in early America. I was especially impressed with Thomas Jefferson. When he started his presentation, it seemed like he was talking about our times and current times and not colonial times, and one of the members of the audience asked him to clarify, and he assured us, no, I'm talking about when I lived in America. At the end, he took questions from the audience. The last question was, it seems like the times you lived in were very similar to times that we're living in right now. Do you have any advice for us? Mr. Jefferson paused. he actually choked up and got tears in his eyes, and he put his hands out to all of us, and he said, "You're right. Now it's your turn. It's up to you to save the republic we gave you." So that's why I'm here. It's up to us. Stop grooming our children. Stop hiding the truth from parents and taxpayers. Listen.
I'm a retired junior high and high school teacher. I loved my experience, my career. I taught sex education for 12 years. I am not against equality. I am not against diversity. I don't hate anybody in this room that has a different opinion than I do. But I am against subversive programs that want to teach vulnerable children and teens alternative lifestyle. I'm not talking about the whole program of diversity and equality. I'm talking about a specific amount of that curriculum that is subversive and damaging to our young people. I have a suggestion. There's much better and effective ways to teach this. The national acclaimed character counts curriculum has been very effective, proven to unite parents, community, and school boards. Schools, that program can teach respect, care, kindness in a much more effective way. So I would just suggest that, and I want to leave with it with what everybody else has mentioned in this room. These children belong to their parents. Let us do our jobs. Grandparents, let us do our jobs. Let us teach sensitive sexual issues at home.
This message is specifically addressing the Board of Education, and my themes tonight address unity, courage, and truth. Over the past year, you've had an opportunity to bring this community closer together in the face of adversity. And instead, you've consciously decided to champion and implement policies that drive wedges between staff, parents, and community. Your policies divide us by race, by sex, by culture, by religion, by class, and political affiliation. You claim that you want to work with parents to build bridges, and yet, in the same breath, you've threatened us with defamation lawsuits for bringing to light your behaviors, lack of accountability, and complete inability to self-govern. Instead, you repeatedly label and treat anyone challenging your control of the narrative as an extremist, as if somehow you have the moral high ground. Last meeting, one board member expressed his anger on a situation and how it was handled and the publicity that came from it. And I do appreciate him speaking with authenticity, which is refreshing. However, it displayed that board members had the capability to respond to public comment for the past year for policies that you knew harmed the mental health of our children. And what it really showed, in my opinion, is that you lacked the moral courage to face our righteous indignation. I've attended every board meeting this year, with the exception of 2, and I can unequivocally say there's little to no debate on any agenda item. No one has abstained from a vote due to a conflict of interest, with the exception of DJ Anderson, to my knowledge. I've sent an email to this board on May 11th, with the follow-up communications on June 1st and June 6th, requesting you provide your annual disclosures provided by PSD's Policy 3.5 and the law, I might add. And to date, you've not responded. I've submitted a core request to see when the last time an annual disclosure was submitted and audited, and the response back is that I received is that there's no records on file. The reason this is important is that a former library employee has been arrested for using her work credit card to make more than $110,000 in personal purchases. This same individual runs a nonprofit organization that tried to remove SROs from our schools. And finally, it appears that this person may have multiple ties to individuals or directors sitting on this Board of Education. This situation is a symptom of how sick Buda School District is, and it underscores why several generations of Coloradoans have entered this establishment but are now leaving in historical numbers. I hope you take the time over the summer to reflect on how serious you take your oath of office.